right. Hey, Carter.
Hello.
All right. So, mindset stuff. Let's get into it. So, there's this awesome book called Mindset. Completely forgot the name of the author. I'll make sure to leave it in the description and stuff. But basically, the author says there's two types of mindsets. There's growth mindset and there's fixed mindset. Describe what fixed mindset is, my good friend.
Fixed mindset is where you basically believe that things are permanent and there is no changing from where you're at currently.
However, there's a more positive mindset, and it allows you to do a lot more things, and it's called growth mindset. And growth mindset is where you have the view that traits are malleable and there's always room for growth. So, you might get a test score like a 69 or something, right? Even though you got 69, you only have 31 more points to go. You're like 2/3 of the way there, more or less, even more. So basically, you see every failure as one step closer to success either way, which is a lot more powerful than thinking that, you screwed up once, you're done.
It's better to think about things progressively as long as you are moving in a progressive direction. Thinking that things are fixed and can never change is not a positive way to think at all, because if you just look at the way things are headed with our world, with ourselves, we're always changing. That's just simple. We're always evolving, going to the next stage. And if you believe that you can't go to the next stage, you're going to get left behind at some point.
And I mean, to put it even in more simpler terms, a fixed mindset leaves many moments where you're going to run into a wall, more or less, and you're just going to be left behind, like Carter just said.
Not only that, people don't like to be around other people with fixed mindsets, because let's just be honest.
Unless they have a fixed mindset themselves, perhaps.
Right, but we're talking about those people who they don't even have to have a fixed mindset that's exactly identical to another person who has a fixed mindset. You can have a fixed mindset in a different sense. Of a good example to express this. If one person is really pessimistic about everything in life, they only see the negatives about everything. So,
well, I mean, in that case, you're just going to cling together with other people who share their viewpoint, though.
Right. But then if somebody else had a fixed mindset in another sense, they may not get along. Like people, they'll click with their own groups, and we're about to talk about that in a bit, about self-segregation. But in a nutshell, really, what I'm trying to get at here is that people oftentimes with fixed mindsets are just so stuck in their ways, and it's so they constantly complain. I'll find that about people with fixed mindsets. They'll just complain, and never shut up about their complaints. They're just venting without looking for any solutions to things, and if you bring up that there are very obvious solutions to their problems, or even difficult solutions, just solutions in general to their issues, they get upset, and they're like, oh no, this is not changing at all. So, and people get frustrated.
Right. There are different types of fixed mindset, and there's different people. It's some people, it's easier to identify if they have a fixed mindset or not. And I mean, on the other hand, when you see a growth mindset person, they're very optimistic. I mean, they don't necessarily have to be optimistic all the time. We'll get into that later, but they really see everything as an opportunity for growth. In that way, they'll always not all the time, but they're more likely to succeed in life, basically.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. People with growing mindsets will not only will they just typically succeed, they're gonna have a more positive outlook on life and find better things. I commonly run across people who they may not self-identify as a nihilist, but the way that they think is a very nihilistic way of thinking, because you'll see people on Facebook or on CNN, fake news, or BBC, and they're looking at these geopolitical matters, which isn't a bad thing. I love geopolitical matters. I love different issues and such, but I understand as a 16-year-old kid, I can't exactly do much about a lot of these issues. The difference is that separates me from them is that I understand that and accept my place. Sometimes the wheat has to bow to the blowing winds. All right, you just have to accept it and go with it sometimes.
You do have to accept that there are big issues that can't be easily solved by one person. You could always look at it that it is a big issue, and you can choose what part of that issue you want to solve. Basically,
or if you want to do anything about it.
Because here's the thing, there's no such thing as there's not necessarily such a thing as a super person who can just solve all the problems in everybody's lives. It's very unlikely that one person would achieve all of that.
Right.
So you have to pick what slice of the overall problems that
what piece of cake do you want to take?
Faces.
And a lot of the times, a lot of people don't realize this. Those people that are typically looking at Facebook or whatever site to where they're getting some of their news, they'll get so aggravated and sit around and moping around saying, "Oh, nothing will change. Society's doomed. Blah 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 blah." They have this. They have this very fixed mindset.
Right.
And it's infuriating to see those people because you just have to tell them. You don't even have to speak to them. That's not what I'm recommending because chances are they'll just infect you. You just gotta tell them though, if you do run across them, if you're gonna tell them something, tell them this. Focus on your own life before you're going to focus on solving or even considering a geopolitical matter.
I mean, for trying to solve another person's view on things, one of the studies that the person conducted about fixed mindset versus growth mindset is that if you introduce certain information and analogies to a person, their mindset can be swayed. If you taught, I think one of the studies was that they taught 7th graders that as you study and stuff, your brain makes new connections, and they adopted more of a growth mindset and stuff. Rather, where they did another study where they just called the people who were doing good smart, and they always thought that they were smart, and when they failed at something which was extremely hard, they took it as a very, very heavy hit, and they had a hard time recovering. And going back to what Carter said about social media and stuff, that also kind of goes to a more of an underlying thing called the social algorithm. Me and Carter actually wrote a blog post on it on the Hammercircuit Medium publication. What it really boils down to is that these social media things, certain things just pop out a lot more. There's these things called filter bubbles that a lot of these things eventually form, or a lot of these social media things form. And what it ends up happening is that if you keep seeing this bad news, or you tend to like a certain type of news or whatever, that's all you're going to see. You're only going to see that type of news, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're always subscribed to this political news stuff, you always read liberal news or conservative news, each side does have its own faults.
Yeah.
You're only seeing one side of the problem, and there is a bigger you're always going to see these problems show up specifically in social media. The thing is that you have to look at it at a very objective way, and you have to say, well, this is a problem. How much does it really matter to my life, and how willing am I to put an effort into solving that type of problem?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because you'll see a lot of people share these posts. I'm not going to do it, but if I were to open up my phone, click on the Facebook app, and were to look at what some people are posting, there's the share option on social
There's a share
media.
option on almost anything now.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really easy with Facebook, because at the bottom of every single video you see, there's these videos trying to inform you about these different issues. The only problem is with that, these issues sometimes have nothing to do with our lives, and there's sometimes you literally can't do anything even if you did know about it. Which at that point, it's just a nuisance to some people. To us, we find that some of the videos fascinating, but it can be a nuisance to others, which is what Michael was saying earlier. And then just to go more into what he's talking about with the filter bubbles, if I were to click on a video from a conservative source, let's say, you can then scroll down and find more videos, and unfortunately it will not link you to an opposing view or a view that's different, it will link you to another video that will then confirm the view. It's the exact same view. And you can go down and down and down and find more and more videos that are conservative. And I'm not bashing anything conservative, because it does the same thing with liberal mind.
Right, we're just using
videos.
it as an example.
Yeah, so if you were to click on a liberal video, you scroll down, you find more and more liberal videos. We're not saying conservative or liberal is a better thing. We believe that a balance of it is a healthy thing.
And one of the proposed solutions that I thought of before we even started talking about this or recording it is that instead of just showing you only the opposing view, only giving you recommended videos that agree with the opposing view, why not have two recommendations? Recommendations of the same view, and then another box, and they're both equally sized, another box that says recommendations of the opposing view. That way you see both sides of the story. Because in war, for example, history is written by the victors. You're never going to see in history textbooks, you're never going to see the view of the person who lost.
Right.
It's very rare, basically. And what it also leads to is that if you're only trapped in this bubble, what this also leads to is confirmation bias. And I'm really sorry for using. I mean, it's just really easy to use this as an example, but if all you're liking is liberal news and you're being recommended liberal news, all those things just confirm your opinion, and you're never facing anything that's an opposing view that might actually change your mind about something.
Mm-hmm. And it keeps people comfortable in that position where they're only looking at that viewpoint. And the problem is with that, people, they find that more comfortable with their same view, and they like hearing things that they're familiar with and that confirm what they believe. And if they hear something that's opposing or different, it makes them feel very uncomfortable. And that's a feeling that humans don't tend to like. It's not something
it's just a human trait.
Not just humans, like animals. You can go up to any animal, you put it in an uncomfortable position, it would rather prefer a comfortable position. That's a thing.
You're right. They actually
everything.
did this. I think they did this one experiment where it was like a nature versus nurture thing, and they had a thing where they had a monkey, and there were two monkeys. There was a spiked one, they had dummy monkeys. They had a spiked one and then a soft one. Even though the spiked one had food, right, the baby monkey preferred the soft, cuddly one, basically, because it seeked comfort first and then food later. I mean, then again, I might be getting this study wrong, but I think that was the gist of it.
Yeah. It just brings up that point. People can get caught up in those filter bubbles so easily.
And because of this, you're getting it where, because of these filter bubbles, people are getting these fixed mindsets where they're only seeing one view of things, and they're never seeing that it could actually change, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're always seeing the bad stuff that's happening. They're always seeing that this person's always doing better, and they never saw what went into it, right? And they start thinking, maybe they were just born to succeed, and nobody's necessarily born to succeed. Some people are just at a better advantage because of their socioeconomic status and some other things, but it also really depends on the effort you put into it. Effort to reach a certain point in life depends from person to person, because circumstances and nature do play a very important role into it, for sure.
Yeah, definitely, but at the end of the day, we just have to remember that labor produces things.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you put enough work into something, you will see results. And it's just that simple. I can give an example. With my weight loss, I put enough effort into my weight loss, and now I'm down over 40 pounds of body fat. And that shows. You put enough effort in something, you're going to see results from your body or your work. If you put enough effort into your work, you are going to see results. That is just a simple fact. There are so many times that you can fail before you will see some success. There's very, very few people, if none, that have not continuously worked throughout their life and have seen zero success.
And if they are seeing zero success, maybe they have to work on something that might not necessarily be directly related to what they're doing, but would actually help them gain more traction in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which brings up a point.
yeah.
How do we even combat the fixed mindset? You mentioned earlier with social media that you could possibly create an application that would suggest a video with the opposing view, which I don't know how that would work. You're the computer programmer, so.
Well, I mean, I know that computers can definitely do this. I mean, it's not necessarily the hardest thing. You just have to have a dictionary that has the positive things and the negative things. But the thing about language is that there's always something that describes the opposite of something. If there's a word with a positive connotation, there will definitely be another word that describes a similar situation but in a negative view.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
Happy. The opposite of that is sad. That's pretty easy, I feel, for a computer to calculate, right?
And another example is like confused. The opposite of confused is wisdom, I guess, or something, or like understanding.
Certain. Confused,
yes,
certain.
Basically, certainty and discernity, basically, right?
Yeah.
So there is a way to remedy this in social media. Another thing is with social media is there's the aspect of jealousy. The thing is that in any social media, very little people are willing to actually put stuff that is bad about their lives on those platforms. They always want to show people that their lives are awesome, right?
I'm gonna butt in a little bit and just say it's different depending on the person.
Yeah, it does depend.
Like on sites, you'll see oftentimes if it's a news site, it will report something that's like horrible because let's face it, when you report something horrible, chances are you're going to have more views than something good. But then you see some other sites that will report happier things and such. But then when you see some people that are very enthusiastic, very happy. Other people are like sort of enthusiastic, like the middle path. And then other people only post negative things. They're the classic people that what you call like the attention whore, right? They're the person that's just like, oh, my life sucks. I'm going to post about it on social media over and over and over again, hoping to get attention. You see a mix of those.
I mean, people cope with certain things. People cope with the fact that life is going to be hard on you at some point, or there's no like physical or like discrete goal for life. It's just like you live, you die. I mean, and there's a lot of stuff in between.
Yeah, unless you're looking at like the biological meaning, which is literally just to reproduce.
Right. So many people have different ways to cope with it. And the thing is that the mindset also plays into it, because if you have a fixed mindset, I mean, there's a lot of complacency, and if you feel like it's like you're only going at where you're only ending up where zero effort's involved. Well, in growth mindset, you don't really know where the limit. You don't know what the limit is. There could technically be no limit as far as the amount of effort required. I mean, obviously there would be a plateau, but it depends from person to person. The thing is that if social media helps breed this fixed mindset, and though there is the solution of showing opposing views, how else can we combat fixed mindset?
There's one thing that we can do, and we can introduce it into the public education a bit, but that's very tricky, because trying to get any kid or person, especially with public education, is trying to get a kid to change their mindset, especially with our public education system, is going to be very difficult, because the idea of, this is just at least what I feel, and I can speak from experience, I used to run birthday parties that would have up to, the largest one that we'd have was 40 kids. Mm-hmm. Controlling 40 kids, just trying to let them have fun, is very difficult. A teacher in a classroom, because remember, these kids don't want to sit down and learn math and learn these things necessarily. So there's gonna be some opposition coming your way. Trying to get 20 kids, you versus 20 kids, trying to get them to learn things that they don't want to learn necessarily, is difficult. So if we were to implement this into the public education system, we'd have to find a way to
bring some benefit or motivation into it.
bring some motivation into it, to where they would actually want to consider having to learning about fixed mindsets and growing mindsets. Because we have something like that in our own school.
Though it never actually hit on that point, actually. It kind of actually focused more on, like, issues relating to... It felt like it basically related to issues that weren't larger scale or societal based.
They were finding problems that didn't exist and then try to teach us how to solve them.
Or maybe problems that did exist, but they just were not able to teach it very well. With any idea, even specifically in the school system, you're always going to meet some resistance. It's just the way school works. I don't know if it's specifically American schools, but in American schools, well, let's just say in schools in general, it's hard to introduce some new ideas. So, I mean, the thing is that you want to introduce something new. Some people, especially students, you're always going to have the older students who are used to the older way of teaching, telling younger students that you don't really have to care about it, basically. I'm pretty sure we see this a lot where, you know, there's several seniors with senioritis, for example, and they tell, like, younger students, don't really worry about it, don't sweat it, type of thing. I mean, has that happened to you a couple times?
It's happened to me a few times that I don't like the attitude of don't sweat it, because not that I don't enjoy laid back people and I don't enjoy being laid back. I do enjoy this, because we're kind of sitting back right now. We're kind of sitting back and chilling a little bit. You know,
drinking the mix.
Drinking the mix.
Yeah.
Just a really quick tangent. The mix is a drink, non-drug related. It has caffeine in it, and there are these different flavors. You can buy them from Walmart or Target or wherever, and you put them into water, mix it up, and it really energizes you. So Michael and I have just been sitting back and having a mix or two. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. It's not that I don't enjoy being laid back. However, I really find it annoying when people take their entire life and dedicate it to just being chill, laid back. Because I said this earlier, and you agreed with it. Labor produces. When you are capacitated from labor, you can't get too many results. But when you are purposefully capacitating yourself from labor, that drives me insane, because no results are driven from
Did you say capacitated? Could you give us a definition of that?
Am I thinking of the right word right now when I say capacitated? So, when I say capacitated, I mean, it means to stop something that's hindering you from doing something. Make capable of a
Carter,
particular action or legal action.
I don't think you thought of the right thing. It has even a really bad definition as well. Okay, well, basically, if you're just taking yourself out of the workforce and you basically you see this correlation. It is a correlation. People who are unemployed, at least the male unemployment people in America, you see a correlation where the people who play video games are unemployed as well. I'm not saying that that's always the case, but that it could strongly say that
it tends to be a case.
It tends to be a case. It strongly suggests that people, they're using it as an alternative form of accomplishment or stimulation of some kind.
Right.
Because there are games are supposed to make you feel good and happy, and you achieve something when you play a game.
You feel like you something in a fake world, but not the real world. And that's the issue.
So, and the thing is that about mindset is that it would be very difficult to teach this in public schools, because it would almost be like enforcing some sort of doctrine or ideology. And, you know, history has shown that really doesn't really work out. It very rarely works out where you try enforcing an ideology. It always collapses at some point.
At some point it collapses, or it succeeds and society will fail because it succeeds. There's toxic ideologies, and this can be one example I'm going to give is with communism. In the 1920s, due to due to there being an overpopulation of kids and not enough people to take care of the kids, there were these daycare centers when in reality they were not the same daycare as what you would
normally expect.
Yeah, because they promised these daycare centers with communist Russia that were just lovely, but they fell miles from their mark of what they actually promised, right? So all of these kids ended up in these daycare centers, and they hated it, and they ended up leaving by their own will. And by 1922, there was roughly 7 million children on the streets of Russia. Now remember, Russia is not Fiji. It's quite a bit colder, if you put it mildly. So
a huge part of Russia is pretty cold, actually.
Yeah. So but in a nutshell, what ended up happening was, in these daycare centers, ideology was shoved down their throat. The communist ideology was shoved down their throat. So if you take that into an example, the communist ideology is shoved down its throat, the resulting factor, Soviet Union collapses, and there's not a single communist state that you can say is doing well or is completely communist. Like, you can look at examples. Cuba is a communist state still. Cuba
but it still has well.
Most of the population is in
a more successful version. China used to be communist. Now it's like communist with a capitalist economy.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the things in America, most of our stuff is made in China.
Exactly.
Like our garments, our toys, our laptops.
China's a weird case because it's not completely communist. If you look at a completely communist example,
they don't do well. Yeah.
So either ideology is toxic like that, and it eventually causes the society to decay, or the ideology is just completely rejected by the population, which is when you get the 7 million children who choose the streets over the schools, partly due to the ideology and the treatment, partly due to other factors.
I think something that's been really boosting and creating a divide between the people who are having a growth mindset and a fixed mindset is the internet. Not even just social media. Social media does play a really big aspect of it, but just the internet in general, the communities and stuff. Because I think the thing is that your local community, a lot of local communities are filled with diverse people because you have people coming in and out, you got people trading and stuff like that. It's being mixed up and stuff. There are many parts of the internet and it's just all one opinion, and it's almost like a hive mind mentality in certain parts of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that the currents of like people who are going out of the way to do great things, I mean, I don't know, but I feel like it's becoming harder and harder to see that.
Yeah, it's also the issue that with the internet, people who have really bad ideas, or
those ideas can propagate a lot way faster.
They can spread like wildfire. Like, oh, good lord, it's shocking to see how so many people, like, you know about the flat Earth theory?
Yeah.
There is a lot of people who believe in that and like will actually defend it in a debate. Not as a joke. I don't even think it started as a joke, but it spread like wildfire through the internet, and now there's a large chunk of people who actually believe the Earth is flat, and they believe that the government is like all the photos of space and the curvature of the Earth is fake. They believe that. There's video footage taken by people personally who flew up in fighter jets and could see the curvature of space. They believe that is either those people are bought out or whatever, and by the government. They believe it's all fabricated.
So long story short, they've never actually flown in a plane before.
They could fly in a plane and believe it is a hologram perpetrated by the government.
Oh my.
All right, they could buy their own plane and fly it into space, and they'd still believe it is a hologram perpetrated by the government. These people are insane, and it's all because the internet could spread these ideas to them. Now, I will take this into consideration. If it wasn't for the internet spreading them crazy ideas, they'd either come up with their own crazy idea or they'd find it somehow.
Yeah. You know what people are really good at enforcing ideologies?
Who?
Parents. So, one way to solve it is that, those funny, great things that don't really help those child safety internet filters or whatever?
Yeah.
Why not just have a software that's a layer on top of, like, the internet browsers that always scans through the thing and sees if there's opposing viewpoints, to make sure that the children don't get stuck in a fixed mindset. Always finding something that supports the other side, basically.
Not even that. How about parents? I'm not discarding like everything you just said, by the way. I think that's a brilliant idea just to implement into the internet in general, not just for kids, but for everybody. But parents, I think, I'm not trying to put a ton of blame on parents, but there should be some lessons parents should teach kids. And when kids are growing up and can say that they've learned more from the YouTubes or the Facebooks or wherever they're on, they can say that they've learned more from the internet than they have from their parents. That's when parents either need to do a better job, teaching their kids, or kids have literally spent the entirety of their childhood on the internet. Both are not good things.
The thing is that most of the time, parents, because of just family ties and stuff, parents are more inclined to do things that benefit their children, right?
Mm-hmm.
The internet is not inclined to benefit or help anybody, basically.
It's just there.
It's just there, and it has information, and the information isn't even labeled as good or bad or anything in between. It's just there.
People putting up the information are either doing it for fun, goodwill, or money. I think it can be boiled down to that. Well, can you trust funny stuff? No, there's a lot of satire. Can you trust goodwill always? Or bad will? But no, you can't always trust somebody's intent. But then there's people trying to do it for money. And that's when it can get dangerous with clickbait and fake news, blah, 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 blah. List goes on.
Because of money, news sources that were once very reliable had to definitely resort to stuff that lowered their reputation extremely. So the thing is that I think it's really the responsibility of the parents. They do try to make sure that they are seen as a very reputable person. Fact is that they spent at least 20 to 30 years, on average, I'm not exactly sure, living life a lot, and so they've experienced a lot more than their child has, and they've just learned life lessons that they're different from person to person. The internet doesn't always most easily show those stories. Not everybody wants to tell those life lessons that they've learned and put it on the internet, unless it's motivated by money, memes, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Even with, I've seen some people tell like their stories on YouTube before, like their life lessons and such, but I think they're a bit more toxic in the sense that some people will literally view a YouTuber as a god and will defend them until their death. Like, you'll get some people with PewDiePie. They'll defend PewDiePie until the death. You say anything about his content, they will go after you. And if you don't know who PewDiePie is, he's this huge YouTuber, the biggest YouTuber on YouTube. And he makes gaming videos. Well, if PewDiePie were to come out with a viewpoint, chances are a majority of the people who are his fans would agree with that viewpoint or adopt the viewpoint, simply because they worship PewDiePie. Alright? And they would fight to the death for that viewpoint. They don't put any thought into that viewpoint whatsoever. They don't think about it in a critical way, or they don't even push a minuscule amount of scrutiny in its direction. They just accept it as a fact. They're drones, and they go with it. Well, it's one thing if it's someone like PewDiePie who's just trying to be a laid-back, fun, entertaining person on YouTube. It's another thing if it's someone like Lacey Green who says very controversial things and her followers are going to subscribe to her mantra and her personal opinions and believe in them and follow them until their death, whether they be good or bad opinions. And it's not bad if it's a good opinion, because that will lead to people being more productive. But if they're tying in any viewpoint that's negative or incorrect or needs to be looked at a little bit more critically, if they just accept that without being skeptical about it, then kids go about throughout life spewing things that are just false, not true, or harmful. And another thing to consider is that they are kids. They're not good at analyzing things critically.
Their brain isn't fully developed yet.
Yeah, our brains aren't fully developed. We can't even say that we are these ubermensch who are just capable of knowing everything. We accept that our brains have not completely developed, ergo we don't know everything, and we can't possibly know everything, even when our brains are fully developed.
We do try to attempt to at least put some research into what we're talking about to make sure that we're not spewing nonsense ourselves, obviously. But there's definitely things that we just don't know, and we just haven't experienced it yet. So
100%. And one little thing to add on to that: if you don't agree with one of our opinions or don't believe something that we say, do your own research and feel free to question everything we say. That's the whole point about philosophy. Rule number 1: there are no absolutes. That's the way things work.
I mean, feel free to correct us. Feel free to tell us that we just completely were wrong about something, so that way we can make sure not to make that mistake again.
If you believe the earth is flat, feel free to
shoot us a bunch of evidence about why the earth is flat, and then we can have a kind, friendly discussion about it.
Yeah.
One question I have left before we close this thing up is, are we completely fixed? Are we in our mindset, or are we completely? Do we have a complete growth mindset? I believe that I think it's mixed in some aspects. Some person might have a fixed mindset with the YouTubers they'll view them as gods, but maybe in daily life, maybe in academics, they have a really good growth mindset. You know?
Yeah, I'll see some people. This is just one example. He's I'm not gonna drop names, but he has a very growth mindset in the sense that with other people, he's willing to talk to anybody, express his views to anybody. He doesn't have any social. He doesn't struggle with making new friends socially, talking to anybody socially, and he's very open and growing to that, to making new friends. He's not scared. But then when it comes to his political and religious views, he's very fixed in the sense that he believes some things that I don't agree with, and he would not budge on those despite. I'll put it this way. He has some very strong opinions about Jews. Not good.
Keep in mind that me and Carter we both have Jewish heritage, so we do kind of.
I'll say this. Yeah. I brought up to him, if there's some secret gold that Jews are entitled to, I don't have it.
Me neither.
If there is, I'd like it, but I don't think it's there.
I mean,
could you consider our anecdotal experiences as Jews that we don't have? We're not getting gold out of nowhere. Would you consider that as a potential possibility, a potential strong piece of evidence to show that we aren't greedy and we don't just crave money all day long? Would you like to build on that, Michael, a little bit?
Yeah. A lot of the stuff that me and Carter have achieved were through pure effort and just practice and stuff. Carter, he has gained a lot of muscle. He's lost a lot of weight. Not only that, Carter has a lot of black belts in martial arts. Me, on the other hand, it's a little bit more geeky and stuff like that, but I've built so much just like fun little like games and stuff and everything, and only now like over the past 2 years have I actually been like gaining some real business connections and have actually like been doing like business work, you know. And that's purely been through the fact that I've been spending a lot of time practicing those technical and engineering skills. Same as Carter with his blacksmithing.
And it's nothing related to the fact that we have Jewish blood in our bodies. So I explained that to him, what you just stated. I explained that we haven't gotten secret gold. We're not just suddenly given shit because we're Jewish. He's still my friend, that's the funny thing. But he still did not change his opinions on Jews. So I think that's a perfect example of what a fixed mindset can get you. How someone can be fixed in that sense, but then completely open and willing to be my friend and anybody else's friend, just because of the fact that they have a growing mindset in that field, but then their political views involve having a fixed mindset about certain people and things.
Yeah, so I mean, if you would like to learn more about fixed mindset and growth mindset, because this podcast was more of a laid-back edition due to the mix, sponsored by the mix. Just any powder really with no sugar but just caffeine.
We could do a tutorial video sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely. So if you'd like to learn more, please check out Mindset. Just Google it. It's a book by Carol Dweck or something. The person's first name is Carol. Anyway. And the person goes into way more detail about it than we have. I read the book. I would definitely recommend it. This was Hammercircuit. I'm Michael.
I'm Carter.
See you next time.